What's good, y'all? Solomon here. I hope you're having a great day. Before we get into today's Hippopotamus Defense video, I wanted to mention that I'm giving out a 30% off discount code for both of my online courses, including the Hippopotamus Defense. Okay, if you're interested in that 30% off sale, all you got to do is go down to the description below or the pinned comment. You will see the link there. Click on that link and plug in the discount code June 2024, and you will receive 30% off on the course. Okay, hundreds have gotten it. Many have told me that they have enjoyed it, and I'm not selling something I don't believe in. Okay, I really do believe in the Hippopotamus Defense as a very underrated, very strong weapon for white or black, either side. And I've used it exclusively as white and black to reach the National Master title in OTB tournament play. I beat GMs, IMs, and quite a few high-level players with it. And I don't say that to brag, but more to say that I really do think the Hippo works. There's a ton of benefits behind playing it. I think one of them is you're just taking your opponent out of their theory. I don't care what you play. If you play, let's say I'm playing as black. If you play the King's Indian Attack, if you play the Danish Gambit, if you play the Vienna Game, it doesn't matter. Because when I play the Hippo, all that theory goes out the window. Okay, and your opponent's going to sit there and probably be kind of looking around like, what on earth's happening? I've never seen this in my life. You, on the other hand, you play it every game and you're growing in your comfortability. So yeah, I mean, I could keep going on why I think the Hippo is so strong. Again, I've been playing it exclusively as both colors and have been enjoying it a ton and getting pretty good results with it. So one other thing I do want to mention before getting into the video is that this course is not just for advanced Hippo players. Okay, it takes you from not knowing what the heck the Hippo is to a pretty strong level of mastery. That's the goal, right? So this is not like, oh, if you don't know X, Y, and Z, you can't get the course. I start at 0 and I build my way up from there. All that to say, if you do get the course, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see y'all over in the main video. Let's get it. In today's video, we start a new series, in which case, yeah, I mean, as you can see in the title, beating GMs with the Hippo. I'm going to be featuring some games in which case I have beaten and won against Grandmaster players by using the Hippopotamus Defense. Here in episode 1, I'm going up against a GM by the name of Hussein, and yeah, here I'm playing as white, 3+0 game online, and I played the move G3. Now, there's a lot of different moves that you could play to get into the Hippo, as we know, right? But I personally like to prioritize kingside development. I think it can make transitioning or transposing into other openings, depending on what the opponent plays, it makes it a lot easier. And honestly, if I need to castle my king, I'd like to be able to. So that's why I play G3, Bishop G2, and D3 fast. Now, of course, many of you are probably thinking, wait, in the Hippo, we don't castle fast. And much of the time, that's true. But I do like having that option open if I need it. So I play that move D3. E5 is played. We go E3, H3 here. Yeah, I mean, H3 or Knight E2. I've kind of landed on these, these first 4 moves for myself, right? 1, 2, 3. For a while, I was doing this as the 4th move, but I've kind of transitioned over to E3. Yeah, I mean, here after Knight C6, I go back and forth between H3 and Knight E2. The move order doesn't matter a ton. The only thing that it affects here is if this bishop is coming to G4, right? Sometimes I'm actually wanting the bishop, to pin my knight, so I get that extra tempo. In other games, I just don't want to deal with that bishop, so I play that move of H3, and okay, we keep playing. Either one's totally fine. Let me know down below what you think. Do you like when your opponents pin your knight so that you can get those, get those tempo type moves on those bishops, or do you kind of like when the bishop just can't really mess with you at all? Let me know down below. But all right, we see castle on kingside. I play B3. Tuck my second bishop, A5, A3. Gotta get this move in, right? I mean, if something like A4, we can play B4, kicking that bishop around, and the pawn on A4 is a big old target. Here we have the move of B6, in which case I continue with Knight D2, and now we have what we call our full thick-skinned Hippo. Both of our bishops are fianchettoed, both of our knights are tucked, and we have 6 pawns, on this case, in the 3rd rank. We have Bishop B7 from Grandmaster Hussein. I mean, here, yeah, fianchettoing one of his own bishops. And here I go with the move of G4. Now, usually with G4, I only do that if I get tempo against a bishop. And obviously, a bishop or a knight. And obviously, in this case, there's no tempo here, right? By playing this, black's not forced to run away or really do anything. They could just look at the move. The reason I'm so hesitant about using this G pawn is, first off, it's on my king side, and second off, H5 can often be an issue. But notice here, two distinctions that sometimes aren't in play. There's no rook here, guys. There's no rook here. Okay. Now, oftentimes if there is a rook there, or even if there isn't a rook there, I still don't play G4 because I'm worried about H5. But in this case, there's no bishop and queen battery ramming down my pawn, right? So knight G3 here is actually playable. You could do this because of the fact that there's no bishop and queen here. Oftentimes there is. Black has went for an unusual setup against my Hippo. But in this case, I could play G5, knight goes back, H4, right? Making space. Now, the reason I'm so worried about a bishop or a queen here or whatever is that a bishop could fly into G4, and that's just very annoying. And the second I play F3, E3 becomes weak, right? Anytime we push upon a chess, squares are permanently weakened. But in this case, Black's just not well set up to really take advantage of the king side. I mean, here, let's say Black plays something like F6. We don't want to play G6 here because of knight F8, and that pawn is very vulnerable to attack. Instead, knight G3 is a great option here, going after that pawn. Now, let's say Black defends it with G6, trying to prevent us from taking it. We're going to take it anyways. We're going to capture that pawn right off. When you take back, we have queen takes. Here, I could see a move like F5. Black here trying to lock it down. I mean, if you're going to take, we capture back. Now our rook is involved. And following F5, we have a move here like C4, trying to chip in, trying to put some pressure on that pawn. Notice if this knight moves that E5 becomes weak. There's just a lot that Black has to kind of hold in the balance here. And the moment that Black takes, we take towards the center. We're starting to look towards bishop D5 with check. Even if this knight wanted to move to support this bishop, they can't. Right? There's nowhere this knight can go right now where it can move and support the bishop. I mean, if the knight moves anywhere right now, we're just going to say thanks. So Black here is definitely in a bind. Even if you take on D3, this might look a little bit scary, but I mean, following bishop D5 with check, if you go here, you know, I mean, there's a lot of different stuff that, you know, could go down in that kind of instance, but the fastest way to win is queen F7 check, followed by G6. I mean, just bulldozing on the king side, right? A move like king F8, we have mate in 1. That's it. And if a move like king H8, best move, G6, white is still crushing this position. You got a light scored bishop, a dark scored bishop, a queen, and a pawn, all very active in this game. And shoot, I mean, why not put a rook on G1 soon? Great game for white. Let's say Black doesn't defend the pawn. Because I mean, if Black defends the pawn, we're going to take it anyways. What if Black goes, you know what, I'm going to start taking stuff? Not a great idea. Not a great idea. Honestly, G6 is a better try, even though it's still worse. In this case, we can take back. Now we have a rook going after this pawn. The second you take with a queen, we could throw in a check. Rook takes H5 on the way. I mean, Black's position here is falling apart. And following G6, you know what we're doing. Take on H5, breaking this game open. If you take our knight back, queen takes, battery ram on that H file, threatening to take the knight. If you defend it, G6. Yeah, I mean, C4 is also a move that the engine likes, but hard to argue with G6 here. I mean, yeah, we got 3 pieces on that knight, one of them being a pawn. Notice here, Black has no pawns in front of their king at all. This position is resignable. So because of all that, because of the fact that there's really no bishop here or queen here ready to kind of pounce on that king side, I felt okay to play the move of G4. Now, if I had to do it again, maybe I'd castle. Maybe I'd take a slightly slower approach, but I do think that G4 is very playable. Now, E4 was played in the game. D4 here is not my favorite, simply based on the fact that bishop D6 can be played, and I've already played G4. I've already committed to this. So when I have pawn structure like so, the dark squares become pretty weak on the king side of the board, not to mention that Black could do that Daniel Naroditsky type maneuver and try to get the knight to H4 with myself having no knight being able to guard against it. So in this case, pushing is not the best option. I ended up going with the move of knight G3. This is also not the best option. I think here castling is a great move, and we could even take, right? Both of these are very valid. For example, right? Let's say we take on E4. Okay. Let's just say we take. Now, Black should play D4. But let's just say they take back with the pawn. By the way, if they take with the knight, in that case, let's capture off, start looking at something like knight g3 and just putting pressure on that overextended pawn. If they want to take with the pawn, even better. More tension for us. We got 3 pieces attacking that pawn, a bishop attacking one of the defenders, and g5 as a potential option, kicking that knight around. The engine likes black here, and I think from a practical standpoint, especially with the experience that we as Hippopotamus Defense players bring into the game, because we've played it so often, in a lot of games, black's just going to fall apart in a position like this. Of course, after d takes, black should play the move of d4. Relatively even game here, according to the engine, if we play it correctly, right? And what do we got to do? We got to take e takes d4. Okay, after knight takes, we can just castle. Notice here, though, it's still hard for black to play this correctly. One little mislip, like taking on e4, we simply capture back. We're going to be up a piece, right? I mean, yeah, if you want to take on e2, the queen captures back. We have 2 defenders on that knight. Let's say you want to capture the knight on e4 instead. Well, okay, let's look. Bishop takes e4. We take on d4. We're simply up a piece here. So all that to say, yeah, after that move, e4, I definitely think that taking here is a good option, and castling, just getting the heck out of there. But in this case, I play the move of knight g3. Now, here's why this is an issue. And my opponent plays it correctly the first couple of moves. Black takes, we take back. d4. Notice, my pawn is pinned to the king. Of course, in a position like this, we'd play e4 anyways, so it all seems normal. But here's the issue. Black here could have played knight d5. And if our king was out of here already, we'd be fine, because knight d5 wouldn't be possible. In fact, that knight would be pretty neutralized by all of our pawns. I mean, there's really nowhere for that knight to go. We really have everything covered well. But with the king here, black does have that opportunity to play knight d5 and start going for a square like f4, start going after a square like c3. Our dark squares are in shambles, and really here I think black has a very good chance of winning this, but my opponent misses this, right? So just keep that in mind. Right, sometimes in the Hippo, keeping this king here, especially after you see the move of e4, trying to break things open. At that point, you got to take, you got to do something. But oftentimes, you got to get your king out of there in a position like that. All right, now here we have the move knight e5, and now I'm okay. I play knight c4, trying to just defend that pawn on d3. And after captures, I take with the b pawn. This is no longer possible, right? Because I just take with my pawn. Bishop d6 is played. I don't want to lose my knight here. I play knight f5. f5 is one of my favorite squares in chess. Geometrically speaking, it just feels like in a variety of different chess opening systems, if you can get a knight on f5, right? And I'm not just talking about the Hippo. I'm talking generally here. That f5 square is just so dangerous. It attacks so many key positional weak spots against that king. And it's just a great attacking piece overall. So we have the move of c5 here. My opponent trying to hang on to d4. We have castling kingside, bishop f4. Remember, guys, when you're playing any kind of chess opening system, I don't care if it's the Owen's defense, a Pirc, a King's Fianchetto / Hungarian opening, a King's Indian attack, King's Indian defense, a modern defense, a pterodactyl, whatever you're doing. If you're playing in an opening where the bishop is fianchettoed, it doesn't have to stay there forever. In this case, black has pushed pawns like crazy, and in doing so, our bishops are not active. What do we do about it? Play bishop c1, okay? We also got to think about it more strategically too, right? When we're playing chess, one key way to think about trading pieces is if we're up or down material, right? If we're up in material, let's trade down. If we're down in material, we should not trade down. If we're even in material, we should try to trade off our bad pieces for their good. And obviously our good pieces, keep those on the board and don't trade with their bad pieces. In this case, which bishop is better? Which bishop's more active? Theirs is. Okay, let's trade down. Bishop c1. Queen c7 is played. The engine here, very interesting. Once g5 takes and then queen g4. Queen g4, when I first saw that, it just looks ugly, honestly. Double pawns this far up the board, but it turns out to work. I mean, we're looking at a move here like knight d6. If they stop that, okay, f4, and we have just a huge, just kind of cluster of pawns there that are very close, very solid, very strengthened. And if knight e5 here, okay, I mean, we could go for knight d6. You can take a pawn. That's fine, right? We're looking at your bishop right now. And if you play rook e7, we can actually kick that knight, take on b7. What's the key move here? e5. Beautiful chess. Both rooks are attacked. We're about to win one of them, right? And by the way, knight e3 doesn't work. Just take the rook. If they take your rook, take their rook, right? I mean, think about it this way. Even though they took here, that doesn't mean you need to take the knight back. Look at what you can take. Which piece is worth more, the rook? Let's take it. Here, white is simply crushing. So, okay, queen c7 was played. I instead play the move of queen f3, and after bishop takes, capture back with my rook, knight d7. I play the move queen e2. Now, this does allow black this option of queen f4, which should have been played. And yeah, the engine gives us a pretty even position after that. But knight e7, or knight d7 to e5 was instead played. In this case, let's just take up some space. f4, start kicking that knight around. e5 is a good move here. I ended up going with queen f2, just taking the slower approach, defending that pawn. Bishop c8, h4. Right, we have so much space here. I mean, we're actually attacking 6 squares on the 5th rank at the moment. Okay, a lot of players will say that the hippo is timid, the hippo is slow, the hippo blah 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 blah. The hippo is slow in a sense, right? Because I mean, the first 10 moves we're just trying to get our setup, but I would not say the hippo is timid. In fact, most of my hippo games, I'm always looking. Once I get those 10 moves, I start looking at attacking ideas and attacking chances. Now, in this case, notice black really can't take the knight because we'd take away from the center, so our bishop activates, and we're attacking the knight. Black's going to lose material here. We're just going to go up the exchange and have a 1 endgame. So instead we have that move of bishop d7. I end up playing e5 and throwing my knight on d6, attacking the rook. Now, bishop takes g2 does not work here because of knight takes e8, and I'm attacking her queen. So we instead see that move there of rook e7, h5 kicking the knight. I didn't think too much about this move of h6. I knew that if black took that pawn, which they didn't, but I knew if they did, I could have a move like knight f5. Bishop d5 is a move that the engine really likes, but I think knight f5 is just very natural, attacking the rook, attacking the pawn. If you try to save both, we could play bishop d5 now, right? You can take it all you want. We're going to take back. In fact, that doesn't really help black because we have a passed pawn now. And if you play rook g6, queen h4, notice the weaknesses in black's position here and the fact that they really can't defend h6 at all. We're threatening knight takes h6, and we're threatening knight e7 with check, forking the king and the rook. Not to mention that we have a passed pawn on d5 ready to come to d6, being supported by a pawn chain. Yeah, I think this position speaks for itself. So we have that move of h6. g6 was played instead, but I mean, we still force weaknesses here, right? If you're trying to become a better attacking player, don't forget about your h and your a pawns, depending on what side the king is on. If we can get that h6 pawn there, if they take, their position's weakened. If they push, their position's weakened. And if they leave it there, we take, and their position is weakened. Bishop takes c6 is what I went with here. And after queen takes, I play knight e4, going for that dark square. Knight d7 is what we see, and we now have queen f3. We have a threat now. Let's just say black wastes a move or something. Knight f6 with check. If you take with the knight, thanks for the queen. If you move the king, thanks for the queen. And if you take with the queen, thanks for the rook and the queen. So after queen f3, yeah, black here needs to figure something out. We see that move, rook c8, defending the queen. So knight f6 is not a threat anymore. I instead play rook f2. Throw my other rook to the f file. Now here, black makes a big mistake by taking on e5. Even if they didn't, black has a hard position here. White is better, but black decides to open things up. Now they might be thinking at the moment, at least, wait, I get a lot of material. I'm gonna win some material here. I'm gonna start fighting back. But think about it. Do you want to open up your position on the side of the board that your king is on if you're getting attacked? No. You want to keep that position closed. In this case, by black capturing, we now have a triple battery ram looking all the way down to f8. Extremely strong position here. We see the move of rook takes e5 in the game. I play queen f7, and my opponent resigns. That's it. Okay, now, it's just a hard position to play. Knight takes e5, we'd still have a mate in 2. Queen f8, rook moves, ball game. Right? I mean, knight takes, again, you just play queen f8 and you're good. Let's say a move like rook f8. Okay, we'll take the rook. We'll play rook f8. We're good, right? Now, let's say a move like a4 is played. This is the engine move. I plug this position into the engine. Let's see what it comes up with. In this case, queen f8 does not work because the knight and the rook are there. So if you calculate it through, black ends up on top there. But instead, we could play a move like g5. I mean, really just clamping down even more on those dark squares, play a move like knight f6 with check, take with the pawn. You know, black here might want to play a move like rook f8 to try to pin that pawn. In that case, that's fine. Let's just step out of the way, but also keep an active spot with our queen. And okay, I mean, now the rook's threatened. If the rook moves, we can attack, rook over. Let's just compare the activity in pieces here. Our queen is much better than theirs, and our rooks are also much better than their rooks. I mean, this is just sad. This is sad to look at. These rooks are not good. Okay, these rooks are not feeling great. Our rooks, on the other hand, fantastically placed. And not to mention, we have a passed pawn on f6 that is supported, and g5 is not weak at all as our queen defends it. Okay, a lot of different ways that you could approach a position like this. It is even a material. Right, black has a b pawn, we don't. We have an f6 pawn, they don't. But again, which one of these pawns is better? Which one's further? Which one's closer to promotion? Which one's posing a greater threat against the enemy king? Ours is. And white here, as the engine looks at it, it's going higher and higher in terms of the valuation. As I look at it right now, we're around +5 for white. Okay, going back, I just want to mention this. Now, I beat a GM in this game, right, by using the Hippo. But just because we win a game, that doesn't mean that we played a perfect game, right? A common mistake a lot of players make is thinking, gosh, I won the game, I played great. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I hate to say it, you know. And sometimes we lose a game and we think, gosh, we played terrible. Not always, right? I mean, you made a mistake somewhere, but at the same time, I mean, you could, if you're playing the right person, if you play someone with the best accuracy, you could play a 93, 94% game and lose, right? So no matter what you do in chess, always, no matter how the game goes, plug it into the engine. Talk to your chess coach about it. By the way, if you're interested in private lessons, I'll leave a link to my private lessons down below so that you can reach out to me. Yeah, that's what I do full time. I love doing it. And yeah, if you're interested in private lessons, I'd be super stoked and pumped to help really take your game to the next level. All I have to say, though, you need to review your games. I think in this game, what I'm taking away is that if we see a move like e4, I got to get out of there or I got to take. I can't just keep my king here, especially when attacking a knight, if my opponent can take and just play d4, because the second I push my pawn, instead of a move like knight e5, right, which doesn't do much, black can play knight d5, and my dark squares are exposed, in shambles, indefendable, terrible position for white. What's up, y'all? Solomon here. I hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate y'all a ton. And if you haven't subscribed before, just a quick reminder, to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell as well. If you're wanting more content like this to help you improve in your game and all that kind of stuff. And real quickly as well, I wanted to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of June in 2024. I appreciate y'all a ton. You guys are helping me do this full time. And yeah, I mean, if you haven't checked it out before, I highly recommend that you go check out some of the benefits that you gain by becoming a member. And I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.